Well, hey there, Heike Yitz here, and welcome to another episode of the Pursue Your Spark podcast. It is springtime here in the Washington area. It's a little early, but may as it be, springtime always gives me the itch to reduce clutter, to have less stuff, to the dismay of my husband, of course, who wishes that I don't nag him all the time, that it's time to clean the closets out again, or, oh, let's open up the cupboards and see what we can donate. But I feel it very liberating and freeing. And as I always say, as a German, I feel that I want everything organized, know where everything is, and I want rather less than more in my life. That makes me happy. That gives me space to create, space to be. And I just love it when I see empty spaces. You can laugh, but I really do like empty spaces. And that includes empty walls. Today's guest is somebody who learned how to be more with less and in turn lives a happier, more heartfelt life because of her lifestyle. She's also the creator of the hashtag Project 333 movement. And more about this in our podcast today. But before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed to iTunes. Click it, go there, and leave a review while you're there. And since we're talking simplicity, maybe you want to take some simple and balanced steps to tune up your fitness or start out your healthy fitness lifestyle with my 5-Spark Lifestyle Guide. I'll leave a link in the show notes for you. And without further ado, let's live simply, be more with less. Today's guest is author and speaker Courtney Carver. Courtney is the minimalist expert at Be More with Less, helping people make space in their homes and time in their day for a life with less stress and more love. She's the author of her new book and the creator of Project 333, the minimalist fashion challenge that proves less is really so much more. Thank you for being on the show today, Courtney. How are you?
Very good, and thank you so much for the invitation.
It is my pleasure. I'm a minimalist by heart, as my kids tell me all the time. So you are my perfect guest.
That's great.
So I saw somewhere you like chai latte. Is that true?
I do like chai lattes a lot. They're kind of something, I think they're so delicious and sweet and a better alternative than coffee for me. So while I don't usually make them at home, if I go out to a coffee shop or meet up with friends, I'll usually order that with almond milk or oat milk.
Do you like it cold or hot?
I like both, but I prefer it to be warm.
Warm. Nice. I like chai latte too. It's very delicious. And I thought, oh, that's unusual. Most people drink coffee or wine.
Yeah, I drink coffee from time to time, and I've recently stopped drinking alcohol altogether. So chai lattes are my thing.
Delicious. So let's dive in. You started Be More with Less in 2010 to document how simplicity changed your life. How did you get the idea to start this documentation?
I had been, I guess, in search of ways to both simplify my life and make my life healthier and happier. And of course, doing that search largely online and just seeing how powerful blogs were made me really excited to try it myself and to start sharing my journey in that same way.
What did you document?
In the beginning, I was really talking about the changes that I was making at the time. And even still today, that's kind of how it goes. So back in 2010, I was paying off lots of consumer debt. So I was writing about that a little bit, writing about some of the decluttering tips and tricks that were working for me. And also really talking about simplicity from more of a holistic approach versus just, decluttering the closet or the countertops, but how it can really impact our whole life, our relationships, our health, and our overall well-being.
Is there a difference between simplicity and minimalism?
I really don't think so. I'm sure that there are some nuances that might make it feel different, but I think in the end they're kind of the same, and it matters a little bit less what you call it versus what you do with it.
Yes, English is my second language, so sometimes I'm thinking it sounds the same, but if I Google it, it is the same, but sometimes the English language has different meanings, so who better to ask than you?
Yes, and I think they serve each other, so I'm not fussy about what you call it.
You left the advertising and marketing industry in 2010 after 15 years. You started something completely different. What was the catalyst for that change?
So I actually ended up leaving in late 2011, but I had started the blog in 2010. So that was kind of the beginning of the end for me in terms of my advertising and marketing career. And the reason for the change really stems back to my 2006 diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, when I was working crazy hours and deadlines and very stressed out with not only work, but other areas of my life. And like a lot of people do, I just kept piling it on and thinking that this is the way adults are supposed to do things. Just keep saying yes, keep piling it on, be busier and busier. And eventually it was all too much. And even though I didn't recognize that for myself, my body certainly recognized it. And with this new diagnosis, I had to pause and really look at how I was living my life. And over the course of several years, of simplifying my life, my job was on the list of things to change. And I wanted to create work that was better suited for me and more enjoyable and more flexible in terms of having time to live my life and enjoy my work.
Yeah. For those of our listeners that don't know what multiple sclerosis is, can you explain what it is and what the symptoms are?
Sure. So MS, or multiple sclerosis, is an autoimmune condition. And the best way I can describe it is what happens is the blood cells that you have that are normally meant to fight off infection start behaving erratically. And when you're having an exacerbation, or when they're supposed to do one thing, they start doing another thing. And what this thing is that they do is they kind of eat away at the myelin on your nerves. And myelin is like the electrical coating or the like plastic coating on an electrical wire, if you could imagine that. Mm-hmm. And in your brain and on your spinal cord, it starts to eat away at the coating on those nerves, and then your nerves start misfiring. And so some of the symptoms may include, but are so different for every person that it's hard to say what MS will look like. But they could include everything from vertigo to tingling in your hands to numbness to cognitive decline, vision issues, mobility issues. It's very, it really does look different for most people. Like I've talked to so many people with MS who have completely different symptoms than I do. But yeah, that's kind of what happens. And so multiple sclerosis means many scars. And so they're talking about the scarring that happens when that coating on your nerves is removed and you're left with a scar, and that causes problems.
I did not know that. That's interesting. Very interesting. Now, do all these symptoms come all at once, or do they pile on top of one another? And are they triggered by stress?
Well, I can't speak for everyone, but in my situation, I had experienced a lot of the symptoms that led to the diagnosis over the years on their own, but they were really easy to brush off or attribute to something else. So fatigue, for instance, is one of the symptoms. I mean, we're all fatigued from time to time. So it was easy to say, I'm stressed out, I'm overworked, I'm fatigued. The like numbness that I would have, I would attribute that to a pinched nerve. Vertigo, I would immediately think, oh, I must have some kind of ear infection. But at the time of my diagnosis, I had all of those things at the same time, along with some others. And so at that point, it was not easy, but it encouraged my doctor to take another step and start doing some neurological testing. Mm-hmm. But again, it really is different for everyone.
What was your reaction, Courtney, when you found out you had MS?
Well, my initial reaction was fear. The company that I worked for, the owner, my boss, has MS. And since I had known him, he had been in a wheelchair. And so he was my face of MS. And that's immediately what I thought my future would look like. And on top of that, the books available at the time and the research available at the time in 2010 was not as encouraging as it is now. There wasn't as many connections to lifestyle changes, diet changes, things that you can do to live well with MS. And there weren't as many treatments available as there are now. So it felt very scary and uncertain and a little bleak in the beginning. Mm-hmm. A lot of my outside of work interests include skiing and hiking and other very active things. And my marriage, I was newly married. We did a lot of those things together. And all I could think was, this is just going to take so much away from me, from this relationship. And I was just scared. So luckily I was able to turn that around pretty quickly and start being proactive about how I might feel better and how I might change my life. But of course, the initial reaction was fear.
Yeah, especially when you look at your boss being in a wheelchair and you think, oh my goodness, this is what my life's going to be like.
Yeah. And I mean, even doctors were telling me, saying things like, you should think about things like if you have stairs in your home, perhaps you want to have a 1-level house, or that diet and exercise don't have any impact. Really not very encouraging. I was able to switch doctors and get much better feedback and encouragement and results. But I wonder if, I don't think we always think of that's our option. I think we really trust doctors so much, especially when we're in that place of uncertainty and fear. We really want somebody who knows what they're doing to tell us what to expect. And if they have a bleak outlook, it's challenging to rise above that.
You said you were newly married at that time.
I was. I had gotten married the year before, almost probably a year and 2 months before.
So what did your husband then think?
Well, he was scared too. But he was also really supportive in anything I wanted to do or try to be healthier. So really neither of us knew that much about MS, and we were off on kind of a new journey together in figuring it out. But I'm sure in many cases many times it was harder for him than it was for me, because there were things that I knew I could do to experiment and see if I'm making a difference, when he probably felt a little helpless because there wasn't a quick fix or something that he could, do to make things better. Even though the things he was doing was making it better, it wasn't something you could directly say, okay, I did this, and so now I've made this fix. Mm-hmm. And so I think for any caregiver in any situation, we have to remember that it's just as challenging for them, if not more, than it is for the people going through it.
Yeah. So what changes did you make to live better and feel better then?
Oh, well, it would take less time to talk about what changes I didn't make, because I feel like I just changed every aspect of my life. I started with my diet, making changes around that. And then I started looking at how I moved my body and what I did for exercise and what might make more sense.
Okay.
And then I started looking at what was stressful in my life, because really my main goal was to eliminate as much stress as I could, because I believed, and I still believe, that stress contributes to MS symptoms and exacerbations. So for me, stress, the next most stressful thing was debt. I was in an enormous amount of debt and had been my entire adult life, and decided to get rid of that, even though I knew it was going to take a few years. And then clutter, shopping, overspending, all of those things were very stressful. So I addressed those. And then eventually my job, a big house that I didn't want to deal with anymore. And it just kept going. Like the more I let go of, the more I wanted to let go of, because life just kept getting better and better. I was feeling better. I was more present for my family. I smiled more. I was just ready to really figure out what was essential in my life, and anything else could go.
Did your husband go with you on that one? Was it easy for him to say, yes, we're going to go and so simplistic? We're getting down with the house. We're getting something small or whatever it is.
Well, I should say that this took years. So it wasn't, I don't know if easy would be the right word. He was definitely supportive and curious, but we took our time so that it wasn't a stressful change, so that it wasn't me pushing him to change or pushing our daughter to change, but it was really a slow process that we could all kind of experience the benefits along the way, making each next change less scary. And we had a lot of conversations about the bigger changes. So while I might get rid of a few pots and pans in the kitchen, when it came to selling our house or making a big change like that, we had really, well thought out conversations about whether it was the right time and how best to move forward. So yes, he was on board, but it wasn't, again, a quick thing or anything very sudden or surprising.
Yeah. Yeah. I grew up in Germany, and my family was always very minimalist, in the sense that we never had debt other than the house, that we never lived outside of what we could afford, that we didn't go out to dinner because we would overspend our budget. And so my husband is just the opposite. He enjoys the beauty and things and stuff. And I was the one reeling him in to where I'm like, we don't need another painting on the wall. We're really good. Let's go on vacation. And let's not accumulate stuff that just is there. And
that's fantastic. It's interesting, I think, because of how, not only how we're raised, but what we're surrounded with, and what we base our definition of success on, and all of these different things really almost program us to behave in certain ways. And unless we question it, we just kind of keep going on that path.
Yeah, it is. And it's just until recently, and we're going into your project 333 in a minute, is I wouldn't allow myself to buy new clothes because I didn't need them. And my husband's like, come on, you need a new cute dress. You don't have more than 2 dresses. And I was like, but I'm okay. I don't need really any more. And so I gave in a little bit because I didn't need to upgrade my wardrobe, but I did need 5 new dresses.
Of course. I could have used your influence years ago.
Oh my goodness. Well, we all learned our lesson, but that brings me to your intriguing project 333. Why 333?
Well, the number, I should say right off the bat, is really not that important, even though that is the name of the challenge. But for me, I chose those numbers because 3 for 3 months and 33 for 33 items of clothing. So Project 333 is a minimalist fashion challenge where you dress with 33 items or less for 3 months. And so that's where the 333 comes from. But if your number ends up being 28 or 35 or something different, as long as you've got some parameters in place to challenge yourself, I don't think the number matters that much.
How did you get started on this personal challenge?
Well, as I mentioned, I had been simplifying my life for a few years, but the one area that I sort of didn't go to right away was my closet and shopping, because I thought shopping relieved stress. I didn't put the pieces together initially that spending more was contributing to my debt, which was making me work harder, which was making me more stressed out. But once I made that connection, I wanted to change my habits. And I thought a challenge might be a great way to really understand my habits and also just see what I really want or need in my closet, because I had never given it that much thought. I was just always accumulating and buying new things for different reasons. So stepping back and deciding to take 3 months where I wouldn't be adding anything new. And in fact, I had removed most of the things from my closet. I could see what it would be like to go with these 33 things.
Did panic set in at first?
And I have to say, here's where the panic sets in, is when you're thinking about the challenge. So when I started really thinking about what it would look like and what might happen and worrying about and anticipating the outcome, that's where there was panic. But even on the very first week, when I would open my closet in the morning and only see a handful of items hanging up, I felt so much peace and just content. I felt content, like this is enough. And I didn't know if it would be, but I also knew that it wasn't an emergency. I had plenty of clothes boxed up and out of sight. So if there was an emergency, I could get the clothes back, but I never needed them. And this is when I was working full time, going to meetings and community events and, meeting with in-office people as well as clients outside of the office. So I was just really surprised at not only how easy it was, but with all the benefits that came with it.
So did you feel that people were looking at you or not? Looking at you, oh no, she's wearing the same skirt again than you did yesterday?
I thought they might be. I thought that they were probably thinking things about me. But one of the greatest benefits that came from this challenge is that I learned that nobody was thinking about me or what I was wearing. And so all of my need in the past to, quote unquote, dress to impress or dress a certain way so people could think about me in a certain way was kind of a waste of time, because when I did this challenge, I expected people to say something or notice, and they didn't, which tells me that people are spending a lot less time thinking about me than I thought they were. And that was very freeing, not just in what I was going to wear, but in every other area of my life. Because so often, that fear of what are people going to think would hold me back. Mm-hmm. But I realized that they're thinking about their own thing.
They're really busy. I sometimes, when I see my clients and I notice they have a haircut, for instance, and I say, hey, you cute with your new haircut. And they're like, you're the first person who notices it. Nobody ever said anything. I'm like, but it's so obvious you cut 5 inches off. She said, no, nobody noticed or said anything. And I bet it's like this with clothes.
I'm sure it is.
Because I'm not a fashionista I'm very simply dressed. I'm not a combine things kind of person. Like some women seem to have a knack for color coordination and putting the jewelry and all this together. That's all way too much hustle for me. And also like I think you feel that way too. You feel comfortable in the things that you wear and they don't reflect who you are.
That's right.
Right?
I think what I wear is the least interesting thing about me.
I see a lot of fashion advertised through Instagram, and it all sounds so enticing. What do you think?
It's not for me anymore. It certainly would have been
Yeah.
before this challenge. And for me, it wasn't Instagram. It was magazines or window shopping or things that would grab my attention in that way. But I can see how alluring something like Instagram would be to people who are looking for their next closet upgrade or wardrobe upgrade.
Yeah, the closet fix. Yeah. How do you get people curious about Project 333?
Well, what's nice is I don't have to work very hard on getting people curious about it. All I did was share my story and the challenge itself, and people were really drawn to it right from the very beginning. And now, I mean, the challenge has been out there for almost 10 years. So it's well known. A lot of people have tried it, and people keep asking me about it. So I feel like it kind of speaks for itself. It's a life of its own, which is very nice.
Yeah, it was in Oprah magazine in 2010, wasn't it?
I think it was 2014.
2014?
Yes.
What is the first reaction when you talk about it or when they hear about it?
Most people think that's good for you, but not for me, or that's crazy, or I could never do that. Those are some of the reactions I get. Or I could never do it with shoes, counting shoes. And I think some people stop there probably and just turn around and run as fast as they can. But most people dig in a little bit deeper, and after some time decide to try it for themselves. And once they see that those fears or concerns were imagined and didn't really happen, whatever the fear may be, whether it's, I'm not going to have enough, people are going to notice, my laundry schedule is going to be thrown off, or anything at all. Once they find out that those things aren't happening, I think a lot of people try to weave it into their lifestyle, maybe not counting their 33 items every 3 months, but definitely living and dressing with quite a bit less.
Mm-hmm. And the challenge starts every 3 months.
Every 3 months. So officially we run in January, April, July, and October, but people start when they want to start. So I don't mind if somebody starts in the middle of a month or in the middle of a season, whatever works best for them.
Mm-hmm. Is there a group that gets together on those starting dates?
I would say I'm sure there are groups out there, but there isn't an official group that's doing it quarter by quarter, although that could change.
Mm-hmm. So they have to hold themselves accountable for their 33 items or whatever the number is.
Yeah. And I think even if there were groups, we'd still have to have some personal accountability, because I'm not going to come and check in your closet and make sure that
Courtney, you got to come. That'd be so much fun.
Yeah. Ooh, I'd be busy. I'd be traveling a lot for that, those closet inspections. No, I think people do hold themselves accountable, and they have fun on Instagram. Hashtag Project 333 is pretty popular. So you can stay connected to people who are doing the challenge, ask me questions, and really learn from it on your own as well.
Mm-hmm. You have men and women do the challenge?
Men and women do the challenge. More women than men, but many men I've talked to about their experiences as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What does this challenge mean to you on a personal level?
Well, just if we take away the community, which would be hard to do because it's a really important part. But if just from my own personal experience, it's given me so much freedom in that it's helped me save a lot of money. It's completely redefined my relationship with stuff and shopping. It's helped me to think about things that I'm really interested in instead of defaulting to clothes and fashion, which for some people, that is their main interest. And I think that's wonderful for them. For me, it was just the default, like the easy place to go when I was bored or frustrated or anything, get a new shirt, get a new scarf, get a new pair of shoes, to alleviate the pain of that boredom or frustration, where now I instead, kind of sit with those feelings and think about where they're coming from instead of trying to shut them down, because I know what happens if you keep shutting down how you feel and what you're noticing about your life.
Mm-hmm.
So it has had a really big impact on me personally.
Yeah, I can imagine. What are some of the tips you could give my audience to get started with Project 333?
One of the nice things is that there is a set of rules in place. And while I encourage people to break the rules from time to time, I think having those rules makes it really easy to get started. So I recommend, taking a look at the rules either online or in the book and going from there. So I've laid out a roadmap that anyone can take and also veer off of slightly to make this challenge their own.
Ah, nice. It's a little bit of freedom there. Yeah, you have which I downloaded too, so I might join your challenge just because I think it's a lot of fun. A Project 333 guide to get started.
Yes, and there's actually going to be, probably by the time this podcast airs, a brand new Project 333 video course.
Nice. Yep. Perfect. So people can follow you along, basically.
Yes.
Oh, perfect. What other news do you have for your upcoming book when it comes to Project 333?
I'm going to be visiting a bunch of cities to talk about the book and Project 333, which is going to be really fun because anytime I do any kind of tour or speaking, it does not matter the topic. I could be talking about something that has nothing to do with Project 333, and it always comes up. So, and then it takes over the conversation. So this time we can just start right with Project 333 and have plenty of time to dig into all kinds of great questions and ideas around the challenge. And I'm hoping to have some really special guests in each city. So that's a really exciting part of the book release. And then, as I mentioned, this new video course. Some really fun things coming for later in 2020.
That's so exciting. So, Courtney, how can people discover more about you, sign up for the challenge, and purchase the book when it comes out in March of 2020?
They can visit my website, bemorewithless.com. And there will be a Project 333 tab that they can visit. They can easily Google Project 333, and that will bring you to me. And also on Instagram, I'm at bemorewithless, and would love to connect with you there and hear about your Project 333 experiences.
Courtney, it was so good to meet you here on the show and share your experience with my audience. I know I hear a lot about living more simply, living more authentic, and our show today fits in perfect with the theme of what I'm hearing my audience is looking for. So thank you so much for being here today and sharing all your wisdom. And it was good to meet you.
Same. It was my pleasure. Thank you.
So are you ready to join this challenge with Courtney? It sounds like a lot of fun. And I left links in the show notes for you so you can reach out directly and sign up for Project 333, or you look it up on hashtag Project 333 on Instagram. But thanks so much for being here, and I hope you got a ton of value out of Courtney's strategies and lifestyle, and it rang true with you. Let me know on Instagram by reaching out to either Courtney Carver or me, Heike Yates, or Pursue Your Spark podcast, and let us know what you thought about the episode. Let us know how we helped you, and if not for you, share it with somebody else. I'm sure somebody else is ready to start this minimalist fashion challenge. I'll see you next time at the Pursue Your Spark podcast. Ciao.